Welcome to Industry Ignited, the podcast where we spotlight trailblazers shaping the future of industry. I'm your host, Dr. Leeanne Aguilar, and today we're diving into the story of leadership, resilience, and transformation. My guest is Justin Mayer, brand president at Outdoor Lighting Perspectives, Darden MBA, and a U.S. Marine Corps veteran. From flying helicopters as a Marine pilot to leading global sales, marketing, and strategy at DuPont, Justin has built a career at the intersection of discipline, innovation, and people-first leadership. He's passionate about culture, talent development, and building cohesive teams that thrive even in the face of ambiguity. Today, we'll explore Justin's journey from the military flight line to the corporate boardroom and how his experiences continue to shape the way he leads, develops people, and drives growth. Justin, welcome to Industry Ignited.
Thanks, Leanne. It's fantastic to be here with you today.
Great, thank you. You started your leadership journey as a Marine Corps helicopter and tilt-rotor pilot. What are some of the leadership lessons from that experience that still guide you today?
Oh, I appreciate the question because genuinely my foundation in leadership comes from the Marine Corps. And so, a fantastic indoctrination into taking care of people in terms of making stressful decisions quickly in high-stakes scenarios, especially in aviation, where you're flying along at 150 to 300 miles an hour. Across all the Marine Corps, and certainly for me, a huge element is servant leadership. So, in the military, Marine officers eat last. You demonstrate humble professionalism, take accountability for your actions, praise in public, correct in private. But I think something that sometimes is missed on the military side is the importance of driving initiative down to the lowest level. And so if you have a private in combat, that single decision that he or she may make in an urban terrain might shape global policy and have huge ramifications. And so you want to make sure that your organization, top to bottom, understands the mission, understands sort of key guidance, and can take the right actions in those stressful moments, even though you're not there to supervise. And so bias towards action, but initiative down to the lowest level.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about the servant leadership philosophy. Is that something that was ingrained and taught in the military in your experience, or is that something that you instilled in yourself in your own journey?
I think it is very much something that's instilled. That it is almost a sacred obligation to have responsibility for lives, and so in that leadership moment, it's not this right that you have, but very much a privilege, and one you have to take very, very, importantly, making sure that as you're setting the example, recognizing the impact you have to young men and women. And so a lot of these are, 18 to 22-year-old kids, and sort of their lives are literally in your hands, certainly as a pilot, but anywhere in the military. So it is pounded in from the basics, all the way through, and also reinforced in just peer engagements, peer interactions as well, and part of evaluations, as well as what are you doing to take care of your troops, take care of your Marines. So I think it's up to each individual then to see how much that's ingrained and carried through with them through life, but certainly has been one that's stuck with me.
Okay, and so it's something that was valuable to you that you took hold of and then took into your professional career as well. So tell me a little bit about how that shaped you as a leader going into the corporate world.
So I think going into the corporate world, I hear from a lot of veterans as they join organizations that they are looking for that brotherhood or sisterhood. They're looking for that I have someone out there who's going to have my back, and I'm looking to take care of the people around me. And that's not always the case in all corporate worlds. And so I think that certainly me and a lot of veterans are drawn towards where can I find an organization where that servant leadership is appreciated, where there's a culture of that around, because I think culture is in a lot of ways set from the top and driven down. And so when you're able to find that, that's what I'm drawn towards, because that's what I want to exemplify in my team. And that's what I enjoy. I think it's just a key part of drawing out, there's so many challenges in today's corporate world, especially with so many folks virtually. I've led virtual teams. And so when folks know that you care about them, that drives engagement, that drives so many other positive things versus them thinking that you were out there for yourself and therefore sort of forces that mentality to them as well.
Right. Yeah. And I agree with that a lot. I mean, it starts at the top, right? So, and finding a culture that is in alignment with your, core values is essential. And, right. And then you're able to serve, not only serve, but make a bigger impact in a way
Yep.
that's in alignment with the mission, vision, values of a company. And then also motivates and inspires and employees to make them feel like they're cared about and not just a number, but actually a meaningful part of the organization.
Absolutely. And three other elements to get back to your original question that are just fun to highlight that I think are sometimes missed as lessons from the military, certainly for me. One, just speed towards decision making. Ruthless prioritization. What is going to kill me right now? What do I not need to worry about till tomorrow? So prioritization. To the value of cross-functional communication. We kind of joke, hey, if I'm a helicopter flying along, I've got F-18s stacked overhead, I've got troops on the ground, I got artillery. It's a weird way to look at cross-functional communication and engagement, but I think the analogy applies to a corporate organization where you have legal, you have marketing, you have sales, right? They have their specialties. The organization only thrives and succeeds when they're all in alignment. And finding that way to reach out in trust with each other is fantastic. And then lastly, most odd one, public speaking and communication. I remember early on in my training, I was told, Oscar was my call sign, Oscar Mayer. Your plan is solid, but you're ending every phrase as if it's a question. And so the value of our lives are going to be in your hands. Brief this plan as if that's true and give us confidence to follow in line with it. And I think that sort of view towards communication broadly is critical anywhere.
So that's really interesting because I don't know that a lot of people, maybe they do, but at least I had never really considered how the military prepares you for, the corporate world and gives you skills like that, creates skills in communication. I mean, it makes perfect sense, but did you have an officer, like what's it called, path to begin with? Were you, when you entered the military, what was, okay.
I did. Coming out of high school, I went to the Naval Academy, and so mandated to be an officer. Thank you, taxpayers, for covering my college tuition. And so from that perspective, at the Naval Academy, it is mandatory 5 years of service as a helicopter and Osprey pilot. I had a longer period of service, but I never appreciated how well so many elements of military training did prepare me for the corporate world until much later in my career, really kind of at Darden, where there were so many things I had to learn, but a few things that came very naturally to me because of that military training, I saw others struggling with more.
Right. And I know you had responsibilities beyond flying, like safety programs, operations scheduling, and leading Marines. How did that shape your perspective and responsibility decision making or making decisions under pressure?
Right. The kind of joke was, all right, flying is your primary duty, but Marine officers, you also have ancillary duties and they have to get done. And so I've been legal officer, operations, maintenance, a whole range of different things. And so as an officer, you come in and there's a shop of 5 to 40, 50, 60 Marines. And so one of them was just value for an appreciation for that staff corps, the gunnery sergeant, the staff sergeant. This is his specialty, and he is running a shop. And really, you're landing there sort of out of nowhere with the expectation to lead. And so how do you learn from, those enlisted Marines who know their specialty, but still are counting on you for leadership? So how do you learn from them very quickly, figure out what they need, and then clear a path for them? I think that's key. Balancing time, trusting, and delegating because you can't be everywhere, and then attention to detail. Some fun vignettes from when I was in charge of our admin shop. We once were in the Mediterranean on a ship Marines kind of forward deploy. And one of our young enlisted Marines had gotten into some trouble. We had started ADSEP, administrative separation paperwork, but he turned himself around. And somehow the Marine Corps took that initial paperwork, processed through, and he found out right as we pulled into Palermo, Sicily, that officially he was out of the Marine Corps, even though we did not want him to be. He was thrilled because here he was just going to run off into the city. And the commanding officer and Command Sergeant Major looked at each other and were like, we need to fix this right now. But how little paperwork errors, like don't mess with people's pay, right? Don't mess with, a lot of the administrative stuff. That attention to detail that really matters to folks because you can have a huge impact on their lives.
Yeah. Well, and those skills definitely carry into business. I mean, the time management, the ability to multitask and just having that attention to detail is, especially as a leader, super critical. The military is known for discipline, but also for building culture and camaraderie. How do you carry that forward into the business world?
I think in some ways, right, you never go back to what you had. And I left the military knowing it full well, but there's parts of that caring for one another, honest feedback. One of the things that I loved about aviation was at the end of every flight, we sat down as a crew. And so you have multiple different ranks, levels of experience. And we were just very honest with each other about what went well in the flight, what went poorly. And so sort of take off proverbial rank and just be straight with each other. With the expectation of we are all going to make mistakes, let's call out what they are, not make them again, but have that culture of open feedback. That is very much something I prize and have tried to bring everywhere I go. I'm honest about my mistakes. I'm very open about apologizing when I make mistakes. But I think that's sort of, you can't learn from mistakes unless you talk about them. And so that's a big part. Genuine care and concern for each other, being, each other's brothers and sisters keeper. And that view of how can I make a difference in this business and in other people's lives, right? Life is too short to not enjoy what you do. Jumping all the way to where I am now, with a corporate franchise, I kind of joke with the 185 franchisees and 130 locations, right? It's as if we're that assault support as a helicopter, right? Can't be everywhere all at the same time, but if you need us, we will be there to support you because you guys are the ones in the trenches. You guys are the ones getting it done, and we want to make sure you have that right level of support.
Yeah, and I see how that translates, pretty directly when it comes to the franchise world, particularly in creating that kind of support system. So moving from the Marine Corps to business is no small leap. I mean, it is still with all the similarities, it is completely different. What drew you to pursue an MBA at Darden, and how did that experience set you up for corporate leadership?
So my wife was pregnant with our triplets on my second deployment, and they were 2 years old on my third deployment. And she was like, you need to be done.
Triplets, yeah, I can see that.
2 boys and a girl, they're 16 now. Recognition, as I looked at mentors of mine, that it is a hard life, right? And I had a lot of my mentors struggling. Marine Corps is going to take care of itself ultimately. No one else is going to take care of my family. And I was curious, how and could I succeed out in the real world? What do real people do for a living? I see they have these jobs, they make money. So I wanted to learn. And so I intentionally sought out Darden. It has a reputation for making you work hard. So case methodology, general management focus, and all those were appealing to me because with the time I had, I wanted to learn as much as I possibly could. And so very appreciative for the GI Bill. Again, thank you, taxpayer, for helping me through that with the family. But that experience taught me so much, just opened my aperture to all these different careers and paths and things you could do to try to still make a difference in the world, even out of uniform. And that was important for me.
Yeah. And so I'm hearing that you're attracted or drawn to rigor as well. Is that an accurate assessment?
I think it's accurate, right? Everyone has, their talents and the things they enjoy. And so I like learning. I like pursuing, and I don't mind grinding a little bit to get better. Again, I think that gets back to the leadership side of, if you're going to be in a position of leadership, you had better be worth it. You better be worthy of it, and it's not just going to fall into your lap.
Yeah. And so moving on into your corporate life, you joined DuPont's leadership development program and went on to lead across global sales, marketing, and operations. What were some of the defining moments or projects that stretched you the most in that capacity?
I was really privileged to have an opportunity to pursue passions and explore all across. I had roles as an internal consultant in long B2B sales chains, in operations, marketing, strategy. Two that I'll call out, just because they're classic right down the line, but was fascinating for me. One was that first sales role that I had. So it was within our Nomex business. We make fiber that gets turned into yarn, into fabric, garments, and in my case, selling through to the North America military value chain for Nomex flight suits. It happened to be what I wore every day as a pilot, this fire-resistant, kind of classic green flight suit. But to learn how to, that B2B sales process, how to engage with the end user and create pull-through through this very long value chain, government contracting, it was just fascinating to be on the other side and realize all the work, science, and cooperation it took from this large industrial value chain and the government to deliver great life-saving equipment to Marines, troops, airmen, et cetera, out in the field. And so it was very fulfilling to see that fully come together, whereas as a pilot, I just showed up and, Flightline gave me the equipment, gave me the gear.
Yeah, you just put on what they gave you. But
Right.
that's very interesting. Yeah, that is super interesting how that came like kind of full circle, how you were first, or experiencing wearing the gear, the equipment and the apparel, I guess the flight suits, and
Yep.
then to the manufacturing side and to the understanding the fabrics and the what went into it and the entire supply chain surrounding that. I think it probably gave you a lot of, a leg up just knowing how it felt and what
How the end user perceives it. What do they
yeah,
need?
exactly. Like,
Absolutely.
right.
Absolutely.
Having experienced firsthand,
Right.
wearing the flight suits in actual flight and what the limitations were and how you can improve them, et cetera. So
Agreed.
that's really, really interesting.
Yeah, it was fun. From there, I then took an operations role. I won't go into all the details there, but one of the defining features was everyone on the corporate side said nobody from sales and marketing goes into the plant. Nobody becomes an area manager. It is crazy hard, and blood, sweat, and tears. Everyone tries to go from ops to the corporate side. But I knew that as a salesperson, I'd be frustrated at the plant to say, where's my stuff? Where's my product? Just get me my product. How hard can it be? And I was like, there's probably more to it than that. Why don't I go into the plant and see what it was really like? And that was, again, enormously illuminating in a high hazard process, heat and acid, you're working with the union. How do you ship out things, and how does sales and the commercial side make your life harder, frankly, by not recognizing that cross-functional key elements. So that was just fascinating to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. That very valuable.
Yep.
And innovation in general is a theme in your career. So especially like going back to the Kevlar EXO and large scale product launches, how do you balance driving innovation while maintaining operational discipline?
So it's a big question. And certainly with DuPont, there were initiatives that, design and science for 15 years, working to bring something new to the world. Kevlar EXO it is not Kevlar, it is a brand new fiber and was one of those 15, 20-year innovations, where I had the privilege to take it from that test facility to building a commercial plant, designing the entire launch plan, getting some government funding to help support it. So innovation and operational discipline, I think one of the keys as the commercial leader for that was understanding the interconnection between functions. I'd seen in other places in my career in small ways dysfunction in large organizations and lack of trust. It's hard to launch a product if sales never believes it's going to be ready on time and that it's not going to live up to what marketing is spinning it to be, and doesn't believe the plant's going to have it ready on time, right? And similarly, there's ways that other functions struggle to trust, right? Hey, we're going to launch it, but is sales going to have anything? You know, are they actually going out there and briefing it? And the plant's saying like, can we run it in sufficient quantity? All those elements. I've seen the power also of alignment when everyone comes together. And so that was one of the big things, touching on previous themes, being very upfront within each function, what's going well, what are the unknowns, and how do we de-risk, and be open to share versus being quiet about our struggles and potentially our failures in that little function. So respect through honesty, progress, questions, right? Being okay with questioning someone else and pushing a little harder. And then at the end, a relentless focus on the customer. Is what we're building, this passion project that we've all taken on and invested careers in, is it still really delivering on what our end users need, what our customers need? Or has it sort of taken a life of its own and drifted?
Right. So making sure everyone is aligned and then really focused on the ultimate overarching objectives. And that,
Absolutely.
yeah, is to deliver quality products on time to the end user or the customer. Whether
Absolutely.
that's a government customer or, another business, or yeah. So tell me a little bit more. I'm curious about the dysfunctions you mentioned seeing. And are those common dysfunctions you've seen across the different organizations you've worked within? And in your ways that, like, your approach, you mentioned, you talked a little bit about your approach, but your approach to bringing everyone into alignment and overcoming some of those dysfunctions.
So one of my last roles in my previous company was in home improvement. And so, we sold products to big box stores, Home Depot, Lowe's, that sort of thing. And had a dedicated plant where previously there had been some mistrust, especially there had been supply challenges and very uncertain and variable demand. And so a lot of mistrust had built up between supply chain and the sales organization because neither really trusted the information they were getting from the other side. And as I came in, it was right on the tail end of Texas freeze and some massive petrochemical disruptions. So there was, a shortage in supply, and it was me sort of getting arm in arm with our supply chain leads, sharing the information we had, hearing from them, and just building that trust through hard work, and not pointing any fingers, saying, here's what's going well for me. Here's what I don't know. Here's what I do know. And me forcing with the sales team, us not to inflate our forecasts to try to hope to get more, right? Here's our 50 case. Here's the range. And then supply chain, when are you really going to have what, how much, to then convey that to customer. And so just repeating that over and over again, I think builds trust to the point where we were back to back. Supply chain and sales were super tight, along with product, along with marketing, improved our forecasting. So that level of honesty with each other, I think, is key.
Yeah, so I'm hearing you facilitated that communication, and not only facilitated the communication, but made sure you followed through and that the expectations were being met. I mean, I know once trust is broken, it can be really hard to restore. And when there's a lack of trust within an organization, that can create a toxic culture as well. So, yeah, that approach for restoring the trust is, I think, super valuable. And
I think there's ways to be wrong and still not violate trust. So we had a product launch, details don't matter. Sales and marketing, you're guessing at the demand. And so I think it's going to the supply chain, hey, we've got to have it by this date for these reasons. Here's our forecast, but then a month later, something might wildly change. And being I'm so sorry. I thought it was that. It's this.
Right.
Here's the reasons why. Um, Apologies. And so just being grounded, being transparent, and I think that way goes a long way with people.
Yeah. And just keeping that communication line open and, like you said, transparency and keeping people up to date if there are changes. So they're not confused or shocked or disappointed if something
Exactly.
doesn't
Yep.
happen. Yeah. Yeah. And you've mentioned that culture is massively important to you, helping an organization align itself and connect everyone with purpose. How do you intentionally shape culture in the teams you lead?
So I think for culture, some of those themes I've already mentioned, right? Trust and openness, admitting your failures, caring for each other, but also a drive to win, right? Marine Corps does not fight the nation's battles to lose. And so really a drive to win, the prioritization of brevity. And I think it's holding those things in tension, being able to be open, admit failures, care for each other while relentlessly driving to win. We're not just playing to win here, right? But pushing one another and demanding a high bar of each other and prioritizing. I'm a big fan of brevity and communication as well. What are the key points? Don't just talk to talk. Apologies if I'm violating that myself here. But no, that tension I think is key. And so I love to see that in the cultures of the organizations I've been a part of.
All right. So just really having a high expectation and yeah, holding that bar high, like you said, and making sure that teams stay motivated and just leading with power and that drive to win is what I'm hearing. Yeah. And
Absolutely.
do you experience resistance with that? I mean, how do what do you do if there is resistance within a culture?
I've never seen a culture push back on caring for each other, maybe warily cautious. But I think that you have to set the example and you have to demonstrate it. And over time, folks will come on over. I think the trust and openness, especially in admitting your own failures, is tough for some folks because they expect to get in trouble. And so I have said that in all the one-on-ones that I've ever had. Few things you can do to make me genuinely angry, but sitting on a problem because you're afraid of telling me when we could address it early is one of them. And I'll be very straightforward about that. And I also speak about my own failures. I said, apologize if I've made mistakes. So make that clear. That is the expectation as well. I think is a key. And then, yes, on a drive to win in a high expectations, you're always going to have some folks who they may have clear passions, but it's not in the field that you're in. It's not in the business you're in, and that's okay. We can have honest conversations around that. Prioritization and brevity is probably the toughest one to get to the heart of something quickly and move along. I think that's part of being a pilot too is flying at 300 miles an hour. I don't have all day.
Right. You're on course and yeah, you have somewhere to get to.
Absolutely.
And right. That makes sense. And I think that you made a good point about just the ability for people to feel comfortable speaking up and taking action sooner rather than later, or bringing up an issue sooner rather than later. Because if you don't know that something is wrong, how can you address it? How can you fix it?
Absolutely.
And I have definitely seen situations inside of companies and teams where they are afraid to bring up issues. They have fear of the leadership for whatever reason, and that just creates more problems, right?
That self-muting, I think, is just killer for organization. And I think it can come in a lot of different forms. Sometimes it can come in over-optimism, right? A briefing that someone does, no one knows what was really covered, and everyone's like, that was amazing. I really appreciate it. Versus a respectful, kind, but clear question to, I didn't understand element X and how it applies to Y, right? Some of those I think can get to the heart and maybe draw out something that is critical for everyone that they didn't get in the presentation, right? So not over flattery, nor hiding your own mistakes.
Yeah. And for the leaders to be able to admit to mistakes, I think that's crucial as well, just because they are the example. And if there's humility And I think that's part of the servant leadership as
I
well.
think it
It's
is.
just humility. Um, then you come across as, a real human, a person who's not perfect, and
Right.
others feel more comfortable than also admitting to their mistakes and flaws. Yeah.
Exactly.
So at DuPont, you led MBA recruiting and talent development. What's your approach to developing people and spotting future leaders?
So for all the candidates who are coming, I always call out three things. One that we were looking for in candidates, right? One was leadership, demonstrated leadership. Two was horsepower and whatever that area of business might be, and the third was fit. And I think that applies very much in developing people and spotting future leaders as well. Is are they the right balance of those three things, and then also balance of head, hands, and heart. The intellectual rigor of the head, the engagement, activation, and execution of the hands, and the care for people in the heart, trying to keep those in balance. And lastly, in spotting future leaders, a lot of it was, are they just hungry for responsibility and learning? If they're out there and they're hungry for those things, then I think you can adapt and learn to get good at whatever the thing is you need to do. I've had the privilege of playing in very different markets and in very different roles because of that hunger. I think it's hard to be a leader if you don't exhibit those talents.
Yeah, those are That's a great framework and characteristics to look for. Question: do you see a difference between generations as far as having that hunger for responsibility? Out of curiosity.
That's a fascinating question. I would say that I have seen similar characteristics across all generations, but that the newer generations are more open about when they don't find fulfillment versus playing along and hoping they'll find fulfillment later. And so they're more clear about sort of their own career opportunity cost and whether something is worth it to them or not. So I think that's in some ways a good thing. It's a challenge for leaders to drive that engagement, but at least they're being honest about that. And I think it's up to leaders to show the value of, you have to earn your people's time and effort and sweat at work, with purpose.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I mean, I've been on panels discussing like the differences between generations before when it comes to leadership. So just curious about your take on that.
There's lots we could cover there. A whole different episode.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So how do you build trust and cohesion when leading teams through ambiguity, whether in combat zones or in corporate environments?
So four things. One, I'm big on aligned vectors, meaning everybody pointed in the same direction. In the military, it was commander's intent. In the corporate world, it's sort of just that clear mission and communication. A second one is just a good cadence, right? When do folks know when they've got touch points with leadership where they can raise questions and keep those open channels? And then I'm a big believer to help drive those in Socratic questions, right? Any leader gets 100 questions a day of what do I do? Here's my problem. What do I do? And I think the easy fault of leadership is to answer that question. A better leader, when they have time, is to pause and sort of ask, well, what do you think you should do? What are the options in front of you? I remember an employee at my previous role would bring me a problem and I would pause and she would like, oh, I know what you're going to say. What do you think I should do? And letting folks have that moment because most of the time they know the right answer and just need a little bit of Socratic questioning. What do you think about and why would you choose that? And what do you think are the consequences? What are the risks? Walking them through so that the next time they don't need to come to you with a question, that they can start implementing that process themselves with that commander's intent, with that clear vision in place, and then go and do it and execute and really only raise up the biggest problems where the unknowns are so large that you need that cross-functional leadership engagement.
Yeah, so I'm hearing really empowering. That's empowering the employees as well to look within, because people are resourceful. And a lot of times they're not confident about their own resourcefulness. But like you mentioned, I mean, they usually have the answers themselves, and it's just empowering them and giving them that confidence to, speak up and develop their own, I guess, it's develop their confidence enough to then draw upon their resourcefulness and
drive
answer their
on.
own questions.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Leanne, it is no accident that where I am now is called Empower Brands. When you talk about what are you looking for and culture and finding places that do exemplify exactly that.
Yeah. So now, as brand president of Outdoor Lighting Perspectives, you're leading
Yes.
growth for a franchise brand across North America. What excites you most about this role?
Yeah, so Outdoor Lighting Perspectives is one of 10 brands within Empower Brands. And so, get the map right behind me on all the locations. So unsurprisingly, the part that excites me the most is supporting those office locations around the country, right? Those individual businesses that are franchises that are counting on a solid playbook and the marketing support and the sales guidance, the coaching, right? We take someone, oftentimes a corporate exile, someone who's moved on or just has a passion to do something differently, own their own business, and teach them everything they need to know about outdoor lighting and how to run their own business, but with continued engagement. And then the second piece is because of our size, we're able to work on always getting better. So bringing like an AI visualizer to help clients know what their home would look like under the lights, when we bring them. So take a picture during the day, turn it into lights at night, provide data to provide, straightforward insights. Another element of the military is I'm big on, if you're really an expert at something, you should be able to break it down very simply in ways for people to quickly understand. And so I think being able to work at a high level, extract data, and then break it down for business owners who have a million things to worry about is another key thing that does excite me.
Yeah. So just making things simple and empowering franchise owners to run their own successful franchise locations. How many locations are there currently?
So we have over 130 locations sort of nationwide.
Okay, nationwide. Is it just U.S. or do you go beyond?
We have a little bit into Canada as well, so we'll call it North America.
Okay, North America. Great. And you're actively growing and looking for new franchise.
Absolutely.
Yeah. People who want to start their own franchise.
And people who want to make a difference. One of the ways I when I introduced myself to the franchise network is I am someone who loves lights at night, right? And showed a picture of my old aircraft with the rotor tip lights going, the lights flashing, and so I think few things light up a client's, homeowner's eyes like seeing their home illuminated at night, and so getting a sense, or for a business, realizing what can happen when they drive additional foot traffic and can show their brand colors on their building with some lights. So it's just a very rewarding role from that side because it's such an impactful thing for a homeowner or business.
Okay, because I know you do offer both residential and commercial solutions.
That and holiday lights, so a whole different side just to get some seasonality even as it's getting colder.
Yeah. And franchise leadership often requires balancing brand vision with local entrepreneurship. How do you approach that dynamic?
That's a fun and tough one because I think you have to have that competing needs. You need a brand vision. When I first came in the role, that was one of the things that I heard from a lot of our locations is we're looking for that exciting vision in simple and clear execution. That's not to say any of our owners are simple. They're really smart professionals. But with 100 competing things going on, they need something they can understand quickly and move on. And that's, again, that sort of commander's intent in alignment. But anything we come up with has to meet their needs. And so it's building a plan and testing it with them for feedback, getting, their thoughts, visions, having them poke holes in it, and making sure it's something robust, and then showing the logic with data to ultimately say, one of the expressions in the cockpit was like, trust your instruments. Mm-hmm. And so I'm a big believer that in today's day and age, with the data we have, You can try something, you can do A/B testing, and you can very quickly see what is working and what is not. And that really helps build credibility.
Absolutely. Yeah, the data is so important to know your KPIs, right? To know what data points you need to track, and
100%.
then what success looks like and how to measure the different KPIs as, whether it's marketing, whether it's sales, whether it's, you know, there are many, many different,
Right.
KPIs are places to put numbers around, but it's all, and in this day and age, there are so many ways to measure things too. I mean, more than ever, it's easier to establish, the metrics and track them. So
And
know
that's
your
why
numbers.
that's
Yeah.
why people come to a franchise system. They say, I want to own a business,
Hmm.
but there's a million things to keep track of and a million unknowns. I'm looking for someone to have a proven playbook and be a partner for me to bring me the right things at the right time so that I don't have to learn every detail about marketing, and every detail about how to reach out and, online and social media and all the different KPIs there can be. I need someone to break it down for me so I can execute and start running my own business, take care of my people, make some money.
Yeah, so it's like a playbook for running your own business, and it's a proven playbook. And so
Absolutely.
that is the advantage of stepping into a franchise. It's something that's tried and true, and you also have the support of the organization. Because your success depends on your franchisee's success.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And yeah, so entrepreneurship it's still entrepreneurship. It's still your own business, and you still have a lot of freedoms. And at the same time, you have that structure and guidelines, and that can help drive success.
Exactly.
So, looking forward, what do you think are the most important leadership skills that today's and tomorrow's business leaders need to thrive?
There's so many, it's hard to pick out a few. I'm a big believer in authenticity. And so, being able to be clear about who you are and all the areas we've covered. I think you have to have both a love for people and data. And that doesn't come naturally. Folks typically lean towards one or the other, but having both of those, I think, are key. And then certainly as a pilot, right, a need for speed. So that agility, that relentless drive to say, I see the world, I can develop a plan, we can communicate, execute on that plan, and then I can look at the world again and see how it's changed because of it. And lastly, just a hunger to learn, right? So much is changing so quickly in today's world.
Yeah.
And as a foundation for all that is just a solid ethics, a solid core on trying to drive the right decision at all times. So I think managing all those in tension is tough, but crucial.
Yeah. And those are pretty timeless, characteristics, really. I know technology is advancing so rapidly, but when it comes down to like the human element, those things that you listed are pretty timeless. Just having a passion and a curiosity, wanting to learn more, having that drive, showing up authentically. I think that no matter what technology looks like, those are timeless traits that will lead someone to success.
Right. We'll see what AI does on any given day. We'll see what the macro trends drive, what the global economy does, what the jobs data might show. But if you have a tight team that believes in each other, that's open about the feedback, drives each other relentlessly, and cares about one another, I think there's a lot you can accomplish to overcome those challenges.
Yeah, definitely. And the need for speed, though, in this day and age, I think is more important than ever, though. I think that is something that is probably a little different as opposed to previous generations because things are moving so quickly. The
Right.
ability to just be agile and pivot, readily at any given,
And
moment.
not being afraid to pivot, right?
Yeah.
Like that is the whole agile methodology, is pivoting quickly, learning, testing. I think, pilots were doing that well before agile became cool. And I think it's a key for anyone in business. Yes.
Yeah. Well, Justin, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. I love hearing about your journey
Likewise,
from the
appreciate it.
cockpit, yeah, as a Marine helicopter pilot to global corporate leadership, and now driving growth in franchising. So you have a very powerful story and an example of discipline, culture, and people first leadership, and it just demonstrated how that ignites transformation. So, Justin, what's the best way people can learn more about franchise opportunities with outdoor lighting perspectives?
So best way is just outdoorlights.com or look up, outdoor lighting perspectives. Come find us, whether someone's looking for beautifying their home, business, or looking at franchise opportunities. And yeah, I really appreciate the time to chat today, just to reflect on some of these things. I'm a big fan in supporting veterans, and a lot of times we don't realize the attributes that we can bring to the table in business because we think they only apply on the battlefield. Whereas I think a number of those really, really are, as you said, timeless and more important than ever.
Yeah. And thank you so much for your service as well.
I
Yeah.
said, thank you for the taxpayer dollars. It
Well,
enormously,
well,
and
we
I don't take that
appreciate
for
it.
granted. Yes.
And for our listeners, thank you for listening to this episode of Industry Ignited. Make sure to subscribe and follow us and join us for our next episode. Until then, stay bold, stay curious, and keep igniting industry.